A lot has changed in the world of Romeo and Julian over the past week. They've been discovered. Welcome back to the 22nd reading in the Wherefore Art Thou Journals series. If you're new here, every Thursday we explore selected passages from Romeo and Julian's private journals, the entries that were never meant for anyone else to read. Before we dive in, if you are not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can follow the journey each week. And don't miss our Monday shorts where I share sneak previews and behind the scenes insights into the story. Because of that discovery, being able to see each other has become nearly impossible. Even at school, things have become complicated, risky. But there's someone in their lives who isn't willing to let that be the end of their story. Someone who refuses to let them drift apart. And in this week's reading, that person is putting a plan into motion. A plan that might just keep them together. The only problem? Romeo and Julian have a hard time staying focused. That's the biggest issue. Now, like the last few entries, this won't be the full journal entry. We're stepping into the beginning of Julian's thoughts on this day, right as everything starts to unfold. So let's jump in.
Saturday, April 8th, 2023. Entry by Julian. Today was a weird one. Am I feeling good about the plan? It's a little out there, that's all I'll say. I also think it's best not to write down every detail of what was discussed today. There's a decent chance someone might end up in jail if it's ever discovered. For the record, we're not committing murder or anything. The plan JJ shared was actually brilliant. Whether or not it'll work is a completely different story. It's definitely going to take some effort. Anyway, here's how the day played out. It had some much needed humor too. Mom and Dad headed out around 1 p.m. They usually turn off the backyard camera then forget about it. Why? Because Dad is constantly going in and out for whatever reason, and the notifications drive Mom nuts, so she disables it. I figured that was my best chance to sneak out and just had to hope it was indeed off. I took my chances and went for it. The front door camera is almost never turned off, so this was my only option. I made it over to JJ's house and slipped inside. To calm myself down, because I was super anxious about what this plan might be, I decided to give myself a laugh. Before heading into JJ's room, I knocked using the secret knock we've had since we were kids. It's how she always knows it's me. She told me to come in, and I found her sitting on the bed with her laptop on her lap. But not directly. She'd finally propped it up on a piece of wood. I've been telling her for years not to rest on her lap or bed sheets, so it was nice to see her finally taking my advice. But that wasn't what caught my eye. I looked around her room, and I'm glad her parents weren't home because it looked like something straight out of CSI. Sure, there was her usual calendar on the wall, but there were also post-it notes everywhere. Photos, drawings, random flowcharts, schedules, and maps. I was just relieved there weren't any mugshots or photos of dead bodies. Not that there would be a reason for those, my anxious mind was just overthinking. It was obvious she'd been very busy. Then she looked up at me and said, "Yes, he's finally here." That's when she added, "We've been waiting for you," and I got super confused. She turned her laptop around to show me the screen, and there was Romeo giving me a cute little wave. It made me smile, but my mood quickly shifted when I realized they'd already been video chatting without me. JJ got annoyed, thinking I was implying something, and asked if I wanted her help or not. Of course I said yes. Romeo started looking around and finally noticed the chaos in JJ's room. To his credit, he complimented her efforts with a sarcastic gold star. JJ, not amused, spun the laptop around in silence. I wish I could have seen his face. It must have been priceless. But it's probably for the best because I would have started laughing harder. Then JJ jumped off the bed and proclaimed it was time to get started. Honestly, I had no idea what was about to happen. Her room was so distracting with all the stuff on the walls. I didn't know where to focus. JJ noticed and quickly got me back on track. We set her laptop on a kitchen chair I had to grab, and I took a seat in her desk chair. The chaos of setting up delayed us a bit, and Romeo didn't help by cracking jokes. I could tell he was getting on JJ's nerves. They already seemed to have this brother-sister tease each other constantly dynamic. Anyway, about the plan. I'm not sharing all the details here, but the short version is this. JJ is going to be the middle person in our relationship. Am I a little concerned about that? Honestly, yeah. But I get what she means. She'll be the go-between for communication since she lives next door. Romeo will text her and she'll relay the messages to me. That part seems simple enough, but oddly, it was the hardest for Romeo and me to grasp. JJ got really annoyed with us. She'd been talking a lot, so it was bound to happen. The harder part is how we'll actually see each other. Outside of school, we're already struggling with how suddenly we went from seeing each other all the time to not at all. We decided Sundays would be our best option. JJ suggested that every Sunday she'd come to my house and act like she needed me for something, then she'd sneak me out to see Romeo. She even had a giant dry erase board filled with potential locations we could meet. It was impressive but overwhelming. JJ thinks we might also be able to sneak in the occasional Wednesday night, but I'm trying not to get my hopes up. I'm already hurting enough not being able to see him. My anxiety has been all over the place, and living in a house that feels like a negativity tornado doesn't help. Looking back, I still don't know what the post-it notes or maps were for, but I'm sure they served a purpose. Oh, I just forgot. So basically, JJ will coordinate with Romeo about his availability, though it's not like he's doing much besides maybe hanging out with Marcos. She'll sort out the details, then show up at my house claiming she needs me for something. That's how she plans to get me out of the house without raising too many questions. The hardest part? I have to play along perfectly. Acting and lying aren't exactly my strong suits, but if I want to see Romeo, I need to get good at it fast. JJ talked for over an hour, and I was zoning out here and there. When she finally asked for our thoughts, I jolted awake. I heard Romeo yawning and saying he loved it. That's when JJ suggested Sundays, and Romeo and I both perked up. Then I heard him go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." JJ whipped her head toward the laptop and reminded him that questions were supposed to be saved for the end. Something she had already said at the start. Clearly, Romeo forgot. Poor guy. By then, I was exhausted and asked, "You're not done?" That's when I learned we'd only gone through part 1 of her plan. Lovely. She did sprinkle in a few details about part 2, but that's a story for another day. That's the part I cannot mention here. Mainly because if someone ever finds these notes, I don't want JJ to get in serious trouble. Romeo at one point seemed completely confused. He told JJ he didn't understand how we were going to communicate with each other. The frustration on JJ's face was almost immediate. She reminded him, rather sharply, that she had already covered that in the first 20 minutes of the discussion. His rebuttal? It's been an hour. This led to her explaining it again, which only dragged out the already long session. I suggested using a burner phone, but JJ shot the idea down, pointing out it would increase the risk of getting caught. Fair enough, this plan was definitely going to take some work. No doubt about that. JJ confidently declared that she was handling the hard stuff. Then Romeo chimed in with, "Oh yeah, so difficult. You're not the one who has to control keeping your hands off this." Without thinking, I slammed JJ's laptop shut. The guilty look on my face must have been obvious because I sat there stunned and silent. JJ raised an eyebrow and asked if I had just hung up on my boyfriend. I denied it, but internally I couldn't help but wonder what Romeo was thinking. Of course, I didn't admit any of my thoughts to JJ. She got a little mad and told me we'd reconvene tomorrow, assuring me she'd text him. Without thinking, I blurted out, "Who?" She rolled her eyes at me in frustration. Then, checking her phone, she realized my parents were on their way home. When I glanced at my watch, I jumped out of the chair, muttered a quick "thanks for all your effort," and dashed out the door. The rest of part 2 had to wait.
To say that JJ is a planner would be a massive understatement. Julian never actually finds out the purpose of all those post-it notes. Maybe there was a system behind them, or maybe JJ just enjoys a little dramatic flair. Either way, she has a plan. And that's who JJ is at her core, someone who steps in, takes control, and protects the people she loves. She's determined to keep Romeo and Julian together, no matter what's working against them. But the biggest obstacle? Julian's parents. The pressure inside that house is getting tighter. A security camera on the balcony means one of their only safe exits is gone. Now, the back door becomes the only possibility. And even that relies on something fragile, his parents not paying attention. Until, of course, JJ decides to take matters into her own hands. Because sometimes waiting isn't an option. Now, I'm not going to break down the full plan here. That would give away way too much. Some things are meant to unfold in the moment, the way they were written. But I will say this. The more they try to hold on to each other, the more complicated everything becomes. And we all know the story this is inspired by. So the real question boils down to, are they heading toward the same fate? Or is this where their story begins to change? If you're feeling the tension building in this part of the story, take a second to like the video. It really helps this series reach more readers. And if you want to keep following Romeo and Julian's journey as it unfolds week by week, make sure that you are subscribed. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Do you think JJ's plan will actually work? Or is it going to make things even more complicated? And if you want the full story, including everything I don't read here, you can order Wherefore Art Thou Journals Volume 1 through the links in the description or at romeoandjulian.com. Until next Thursday, Keep your heart open, your journal close, and your story unfolding.